The automotive industry is full of secrets and curiosities that few know. Behind many models we believe to be exclusive, strategic agreements between brands are sometimes hidden, where a new car is nothing more than a model from another company with slight modifications. In this video, we'll show you the top 10 cars that brands sold to other brands, from small city cars to SUVs and pickups, revealing how some companies leverage shared platforms to save costs, comply with regulations, or expand their market. Get ready to discover that in the automotive world, what appears to be completely new isn't always truly exclusive to each brand. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay up to date with every event in this lovely community. At first glance, the Mazda MX-5 and the Fiat 124 Spider appear to be completely different cars. One embodies the Japanese philosophy of lightness and precision, while the other evokes classic Italian design and nostalgia. But beneath the surface, they share much more than most people realize. Both models were born from a partnership between Mazda and Fiat. Mazda provided the platform, chassis, suspension, transmission, and virtually all the core engineering of the fourth-generation MX-5. Fiat, for its part, handled the exterior design, some fine-tuning, and, in the case of the 124 Spider, its own turbocharged engine. In other words, the Fiat 124 Spider is, technically, a Mazda MX-5 disguised as an Italian car. It's even manufactured at the same plant in Hiroshima, Japan. This case demonstrates how one brand can market another's engineering under a completely different identity, changing only the aesthetics and narrative to appeal to a different type of customer. This is one of the clearest examples of a logo swap in the automotive industry. The Fiat Fullback wasn't developed by Fiat from scratch. It was born directly from the Mitsubishi L200, one of the most recognized midsize pickups in the world. In the mid-2010s, Fiat urgently needed a pickup to compete in markets where these types of vehicles dominate, especially in Europe, Latin America, and the Middle East. But developing a truck from scratch was expensive and took many years. The solution was to partner with Mitsubishi and use the L200 as a base. Thus, the Fiat Fullback was born in 2016. In essence, it's a Mitsubishi L200 with slight aesthetic changes: grille, emblems, and minor design details. Everything else remains the same: chassis, engines, transmission, interior, and load capacities. Even its on- and off-road performance is virtually identical. However, the public noticed immediately. Many buyers viewed the Fullback as an L200 in disguise, which damaged its own identity. While the L200 enjoyed a solid reputation, the Fiat Fullback never gained commercial traction and was eventually withdrawn from several markets. This case illustrates how model sharing can be a quick fix, but also a risky one. One of the most surprising cases in the modern automotive industry is that of the Nissan Navara and Mercedes X-Class. Few people ever imagined that a Japanese work truck would serve as the basis for a Mercedes-Benz SUV. However, that is exactly what happened with the Mercedes-Benz X-Class. In the mid-2010s, Mercedes wanted to enter the mid-size pickup segment, a market dominated by models like the Toyota Hilux, Ford Ranger, and Nissan Navara. But developing a pickup from scratch didn't fit with its cost strategy. Therefore, it decided to partner with Nissan and use the Navara as a structural base. Thus, the Mercedes-Benz X-Class was born in 2017. Beneath its elegant body and more luxurious interior lay much of the Nissan Navara's architecture. Chassis, suspension, and many mechanical components were shared. Mercedes modified the exterior design, improved interior materials, and tuned the suspension to give it a more refined feel, in keeping with its premium image. The problem was public perception. Many buyers felt they were paying Mercedes prices for a pickup that, at its core, was still a Nissan. Although the X-Class offered more luxury and a more comfortable ride, it failed to justify its high price against its rivals. Sales were disappointing, and within a few years, Mercedes decided to discontinue the model. One of the clearest and most striking examples of how a brand can completely lose the identity of a historic model is this one. For years, the Opel Combo was a vehicle developed by Opel with its own distinct personality. However, Everything changed when the French PSA Group, owner of Peugeot and Citroën, acquired Opel in 2017. From that moment on, Opel stopped developing many of its own platforms and began using the architecture of its new parent company. The result was immediate. The new generation of the Opel Combo ceased to be an Opel at heart, becoming instead a Peugeot partner and a Citroën Berlingo with a different badge. The transformation was total. Chassis, engines, suspension, interior, dashboard, doors, dimensions, and technology are exactly the same in all three models. They are even manufactured in the same plants. The real differences are limited to the grille, the steering wheel, and a few exterior design details. Technically, they are the same vehicle. For the PSA Group, the strategy made sense: reduce costs, accelerate development, and unify platforms. But for Opel's most loyal customers, it was a hard blow. The Combo ceased to represent German engineering and came to be perceived as a cloned model, losing some of its historical character. When discussing brand alliances, Renault and Samsung Motors represent one of the most interesting cases in the Asian market. The Renault Koleos, a global SUV from the French brand, was literally transformed into another vehicle for South Korea under the name Samsung QM6. Although many are unaware, Samsung Motors is largely owned by the Renault Group. Therefore, instead of developing its own models from scratch, the Korean brand has used Renault vehicles, adapting them to its local market. The QM6, launched in 2016, is essentially a Renault Koleos with Samsung badges. The platform, body, interior, and mechanical structure are virtually identical. Even many interior components are interchangeable between the two models. The main differences lie in minor adjustments to the suspension, equipment, and front-end design to suit the tastes of the Korean public. This case demonstrates that, in the modern industry, brand identity can be more flexible than it seems. For Samsung, it was a quick way to compete in the SUV segment, and for Renault, a way to expand its global presence without investing in an exclusive model. Two different brands, one car, two different markets. In this alliance, we can see one of the most obvious badge changes. The Suzuki Across is nothing more than a Toyota RAV4 plug-in hybrid with Suzuki emblems. The relationship between the two is so direct that many experts even consider it the same car with a different logo. For years, Suzuki had faced a serious problem in Europe. It lacked its own plug-in hybrid technology. Developing it from scratch would have required billions and several years of work. Toyota, on the other hand, already dominated this field. Therefore, both brands signed a strategic alliance in which Toyota shared its technology and Suzuki offered support in Asian markets. The result was the Suzuki Across, launched in 2020. Platform, motors, batteries, electric all-wheel drive, and hybrid system are identical to the RAV4 plug-in. Even the interior, screens, and exterior silhouette are virtually the same. The differences are limited to the grille, emblems, and minor aesthetic details. For Suzuki, it was a smart solution. It allowed them to sell a high-end plug-in hybrid SUV without investing in development. For Toyota, it meant expanding the presence of its technology without launching a new model of its own. However, for many buyers, the Across lost its appeal. When discussing some of the most curious cases in the automotive industry, this one is a must, because it wasn't just a car that was sold. It completely transformed a brand's identity in certain markets. The Dodge Attitude was sold for years in Latin American countries as an American sedan, economical and reliable. However, what many never knew was that it wasn't actually a genuine Dodge. At its core, the Dodge Attitude was nothing more than a Mitsubishi Mirage with different badges. Instead of developing its own model for the entry-level segment, Dodge opted for an agreement with Mitsubishi to take their compact car and sell it as its own. Thus, the design, platform, engine, transmission, and all the engineering were Japanese, even though the logo on the hood said Dodge. The transformation was almost invisible to the average buyer. The Attitude was promoted as part of the Dodge lineup, sharing showrooms with models like the Charger and the Journey, despite having no real connection to them. In practice, customers were unknowingly buying a Mitsubishi disguised as a Dodge. This case illustrates how some brands, in order to save costs and remain competitive in emerging markets, sacrifice identity to offer a fast and cheap product. The Dodge Attitude wasn't a bad car, but it also didn't represent the brand's historical essence.
Few cars have demonstrated so clearly that a brand's identity can completely change the perception of a vehicle. The Toyota 86, the Subaru BRZ, and the Scion FRS are in essence the same car. They were born from a strategic alliance between Toyota and Subaru with a very clear objective: to create an accessible, lightweight sports car focused on driving enjoyment. All three models share the same platform, the same four-cylinder boxer engine developed by Subaru, the same transmission, and virtually the same structure. In fact, they come from the same factory in Japan. The differences are limited to minor suspension adjustments, minimal aesthetic details, and the emblem on the hood. Mechanically, they are practically identical. However, each brand marketed them with a distinct personality. Toyota presented it as a pure and balanced sports car. Subaru focused on stability and control, and Scion offered it as a youthful and urban option. Three different identities for the same car, demonstrating that often you're not buying a different car, but a different story told by a different brand.
When two major Japanese brands decide to form an alliance, something like what happened with these two vehicles often occurs. At first glance, the Mazda 2 Hybrid appears to be a Mazda model, but in reality, it is almost entirely a Toyota Yaris with a different badge. In the early 2020s, Mazda found itself in a difficult situation in Europe. Strict emissions regulations required the sale of hybrid and electric cars, but Mazda did not have its own hybrid system ready for mass production in the compact segment at that time. Developing one from scratch would have been costly and time-consuming. The solution was to partner with Toyota, a world leader in hybrid technology. Thus, in 2022, Mazda launched the Mazda 2 Hybrid, which is essentially a rebadged Toyota Yaris hybrid. They share the platform, engines, hybrid system, interior, and even body lines. The differences are limited to minor aesthetic details and the logo. The Aston Martin Signet is one of the most striking examples of how a luxury brand can turn to an economy model to meet a legal and practical requirement. Launched in 2011, the Signet was born because Aston Martin needed to reduce its fleet's average emissions to comply with European CO2 regulations. But how did they do it? They took a Toyota IQ, a small Japanese city car, and transformed it into an Aston Martin. The Signet shared the IQ's platform, engine, and much of its engineering, although it received an exterior redesign that included Aston Martin's iconic grille, exclusive wheels, and luxurious interior details. Even so, the car's heart remained Japanese. The IQ's 1.3-liter engine with modest performance and designed more for city driving than highway cruising. Although the idea was to meet emissions targets and attract urban buyers who wanted the Aston Martin brand, the reception was lukewarm. Many critics pointed out that the Signet was a disguised IQ, overpriced for what it offered, and lacking the excitement typically expected from an Aston Martin. Despite this, its existence reflects how, at times, even luxury brands resort to strategic collaborations to adapt to regulations or market demands. The Aston Martin Signet became a curious example of automotive marketing, a compact luxury car with Japanese essence, demonstrating that the logo sometimes matters more than the engine. As we've seen, collaboration between brands is much more common than it seems. Some models are born from strategic agreements, others to comply with regulations, and some simply to leverage a successful platform. These cars teach us that behind a logo or a prestigious name, there can be a shared history with another brand, and that in the automotive industry, innovation and efficiency often go hand in hand with collaboration. If you enjoyed this journey through the secrets of the automotive world, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. Thanks for joining us.